According to Lyny, he left via the vent after entering the tunnel. Lyny went to the room that contains the... Lyny did not take part in the underground altercation.
When the countdown started, but he immediately used a vent to access the Opera House basement. Once he reached that area, he heard a voice in what should have been the crime scene had already developed by the time he reached the tunnel again. And finally, he reached the surface, and that...
My reasoning?
If that's the case, then if Cowell hadn't entered the tunnel, assuming that what you say is true, Lyny only needed to kidnap...
Oh.
That's right, you tell him! And that's what... Well, your denial is very strident, I'll give you that. But what proof... Of course I do. You're saying that he wasn't?
That's right! Lyny, this means the same clue you...
To think you'd use such logic. Well then, if it wasn't Lyny who committed the crimes, then who was it?
Halsey is the missing person, and the deceased's name is Cowell. Could there have been a third person? The deceased's name is Cowell.
Huh? That can't be...
Oh,
What I must do next is recreate the truth. What Cowell did, and how he went from would-be... No one entered or left the Opera House through its entrances. So, where would the criminal have wanted? The deceased's name is Cowell, Lyny's assistant. Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel. The sound we heard may have come from... Lyny was not in the tunnel at... It would have been tough for both people to fit. The deceased's name is Cowl, Lyneys' assistant. Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel. The sound we heard may have come from a Lyny was not in the tunnel. It would have been tough for both people. No one entered or left the opera house through its entrances. So, where would the criminal have wanted to take Halsey? The deceased's name is Cowl, Lyneys' Halsey's clothing was... The sound we heard may have come... Lyny was not in the tunnel at that... It would have been tough for both people... Halsey's clothing was in... No one entered or left... No one entered or left the opera... Halsey's clothing was in the... Lyny was not in the... It would have been tough for both...
What's wrong, Traveler?
I see.
Look, since we're at a dead end, just like the trick is at
If only we knew how...
Well, that would be nice, but the tunnel... And it's not like this is a magic trick where you can just make...
If the defense is unable to make further effective arguments, we will move on to the next stage of the trial.
Lyny was not in the tunnel at that moment. The sound we heard may have come... The deceased's name is The vase was not broken.
Oh, Paimon gets it! Lynette escaped from... If there's a
How could a person ever be transformed into water? This is reality we're talking about here, not some magic trick. Most magic tricks are...
Even so, the truth must be out there somewhere. Perhaps some new line of... Since Cal was the deceased, we haven't played... But given that we aren't making much progress with the case, it wouldn't hurt...
People really do come up with all sorts of harebrained schemes when at the...
Nevertheless, I believe that this is a reasonable request on the part of an attorney. Since the trial does indeed appear to be at it. Guards, please step into the lounge and
We are still examining the items, but we have already made... We discovered several test tubes of fluid within Cowell's back. The notebook in his backpack claims that these fluids...
the primordial...
The note's contents also indicate that Cowell belonged to an organization that sells... The notebook has many entries concerning safe usage of these fluids. One of these tubes was labeled Opera Epiclese. Along with the notes also state that these dissolution properties work exclusively on people from Fontaine. It's likely. As such, we believe that the defense's hypothesis is...
You gotta be kidding! People...
It's something so ridiculous.
Wait a moment. This reminds me of a certain prophecy, but...
If people can become water, does that mean that the water tank's real use was as a means to hide water stains? And if... Wait just a minute. Could that mean...
Demoiselle, wait! What about your partner?
Let's go. Just try...
Order! Order! It is undeniable that further examination of the... Still, let us assume that these clues are indeed authentic, albeit with the understanding that... Guards, please continue examining... Mr. Lyny, it appears your hypothesis is supported by the...
Of course. If we uphold this hypothesis, I believe that many of this case is seemingly...
Right! Like the metal hook! Let's think about this. Cowell's methods must have something to deal with that.
The deceased's name is Cowl. The water from the primordials. Lynette was in the magic. I remember there was something. The rope that strung the water from the primordial sea should already have been prepped before. I remember there was something. Now it seems like the hook.
It's Ace Detective Paimon's time to shine again! In the original plan, Cowl would tamper when the magic box containing Halsey was lowered. The metal hook would retract gradually when the balloon attached to the. Afterward, Cowl would. But he encountered something unexpected in the tunnel and wound up being fatally hit by the same water.
Huh. That does make sense.
That actually links together a lot of the more confusing.
Oh dear, what do I do? Even I think they sound convincing now.
Now, it seems like the only point of contention remained. His notes mentioned he had an accomplice who could be—
On that note, the guards have just contacted. I shall now invite him on stage.
Thank you, Your Honor. We were just inspecting the luggage of the other people involved in this case. And we found an identical sample of the water from the primordial—
What?
That can't be.
Oh, I see. Well, how wonderfully does this not, my dear citizens? Lyny did not need to take part in the dissolution of the young woman at all, having made modifications to the props beforehand. His accomplice Cowl then caused Halsey to vanish using the water from the primordial sea. But upon his return, in cruel avarice, Lyny desired sole credit and prepared to do away with his partner in crime. Ultimately, he knocked Cowl out, and the tool meant to cover the crime up also became a murder weapon. Now, as much as I regret having come to such a viciously straightforward conclusion, it does seem that the famed Fatui is quite... Am I right?
We've used up all the evidence. Is this the end?
Oh no! Seems
I believe this is indeed... Now then, my good...
Excuse me, everyone.
Miss, I must ask you...
Oh, come on. Don't be hasty. I have a good reason for interrupting, you know. I'll show you an amazing trick. One that can bring a young woman who has disappeared. What?
No offense, miss, but miracle—
Come on now, don't be silly. But once everyone believes the illusion, can't magic reveal the truth to them? And wouldn't such a trick be the most Come on, Lyny and Lynette. Give it another go. Don't. But, as the magic makers and stars of the show...
I understand.
And voila.
Sorry for the interruption.
Wait, isn't that Halsey?
To be clear, I'm only here because this person told me that if I testified, then I was hiding outside this room listening to the proceedings because I was afraid that I was just feeling happy that no one had noticed me. And then
That'll teach you to underestimate us three.
Where should I begin? Firstly, my name isn't Halsey. I heard that Lyny's show was gonna be a real thriller, but that's how I make a living. I steal stuff here and but I was noticed at the harbor a few days ago, and
Hey! No wonder you look familiar. Lyny even mentioned that you were
Well, and I thought that would have been the end of it, but then he even mentioned the Fortress of Meripede. That's a prison, isn't it? so you can imagine. So I played along with the show while looking for an opening to flee, but then I got water poured on me for no reason. I wasn't going to take that lying down. So there was nowhere to run from there, though, so I had to change my clothes and hide in a box. I slipped out after the first guard arrived at the scene and continued hiding inside the opera.
Can a person even hide in there?
But I swear, I didn't know that the water tank. Had I known that, I wouldn't have put him in the magic box.
Well, that makes everything pretty clear now, doesn't it?
This time, we need to tell the... The strange sound wasn't from a fight. It was Lily Ann's attempt to break out when she was... The flower vase was not broken to cover anything up, but was smashed during the struggle. Lily Ann was afraid that she would be recognized if she left, so she changed clothes and hid, biding her time. Just what one might expect of an experienced thief.
And it's Ace Detective Paimon! Having been selected out, her panic only intensified. Hearing the commotion, Cowl, he did not know that Lily Ann was not from Font. Mistakenly believing that the water from the primordial... The two broke the flower with no way of escaping.